Welcome back to the LEC. I am joined by the Moose on the loose. Welcome back, Hussein. Congratulations on the 2-0 weekend. Let's start with this game. Pretty tense, pretty close, really competitive with some interesting decision-making, Barons for inhibitors. Talk me through the game from your perspective.
So that game was one where the team that has better control of side lanes would win. And there were a lot of moments where OG could have punished us for decisions we made, but they just didn't. And I think our veterancy showed today.
Well, it definitely did. And also something for the weekend. You return to the roster in, on-stage role and you pick up 2 wins. Were you the missing ingredient after, losing 4 games in a row?
I mean, so we have the same players we had before, and the reality is that I've had 2 days of practice. So I wouldn't say I came in and I'm the only thing, but the one thing we did do is we had a meeting the night off, and we all essentially promised each other we'd get our shit together, and I think we're all doing that. We're all tired of being an embarrassment to ourselves, so we're all trying to step up.
Well, it definitely shows 2 extremely important wins this weekend. We were just talking before the interview about playoff chances. Misfits are now 6 wins, 6 losses. You own the head-to-head against Origin. I mean, how much further forward have you looked and thinking about playoffs?
So, as I've said, the first goal is making playoffs, and now that we have the head-to-head, I would say we have a pretty good chance. But B, once we make playoffs, it's not about coming 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. I want to win the whole thing. I'm not scared of G2. I'm not scared of any other team. So even regardless of what it's been for the last 4, 5 losses or whatever, from here on onwards, Misfits is here to win the whole thing.
Misfits is here to win the whole thing. There's some confidence I'm looking forward to seeing on the roof. Congratulations again on the 2-0. We're going to head back to Sjokz and the gang to take us into Splyce versus Rogue.
Well then, we're tired of being an embarrassment to ourselves. Do you guys ever say that to yourselves in the mirror?
No.
No? Come on.
I would never embarrass myself.
Look at these 2 specimen right here.
Hell yeah.
Just kidding.
Let's get it.
Really cool high five.
Yeah, I'm sorry to derail it, but yeah, let's bring it back to Misfits because the Moose is back. He said it, and not to make a joke out of the statement, I think that is a wonderful statement. And on top of that, saying that we're not here to just get into playoffs. Now we're back in it to win it. And a 2-0 week is a fantastic start. Hansama getting the Kia player of the game with 64% of the votes is also important, but it then loops me back around to it. We don't have too much time now. We'll have more time in VGL, but it's a 2-0. Hansama is the MVP again in one of those 2 games. Have we seen a different Misfits?
No.
Yesterday?
I mean, I think Feven had really solid performances over the last 2 days. And I won't go too much into it now because, as you said, we do have PGL later. But for me, I think the biggest difference is that Feven is having more carry performances than he's had in the past. And I think it just better enables the rest of his team to play more, I guess, prominent than they have been so far.
Well, we'll put a pin in it and talk about it later in PGL. For now, though, I do want to take a turn to our next game. Now, after losing their first 9 games, Rogue have definitely bounced back with some impressive performances. And before their match against Splyce, we want to play a little game that you might be familiar with called That or This. It's completely new concept. It's never been done before. That or This. First up for Rogue, most important player, Finn or VandeR?
I've got to put my money on VandeR right here. I think this. I was getting the sides confused, but yeah, I'll put it on VandeR.
Justin Flowers and discount Kobbe. Who's who?
At least I'm not handcuffed to Vedius.
It's true.
But I put my money on this with VandeR because I think Rogue needed someone to come in and call the shots, and that's exactly what you got with a veteran like VandeR.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Finn has held his own very much so. I mean, it's not easy to get thrown into the mix and play with this team, but the fact that VandeR's also come in and they have had clearer shot calling is a definite plus and has racked them up 2 wins so far. Next one, better carry for Rogue, HeaQ or Sencux?
So this one is a bit of a tough one after yesterday's performances from the 2 carries. I will say that the majority of that game, I felt like Sencux was playing very well. There were definitely a couple of missteps that can be rectified for the future, but for me, it does feel like when you look at him as a mid laner, he's someone that often falls to the middle of the pack, but he's still a very talented mid laner that I do feel has had very solid performances since the introduction of Finn and VandeR.
Yeah, I think throughout the history, Sencux has had high highs at times, but it's never really kept going for a very long time. So that's what I want to see from them. On to the next one in Rogue. Rogue, Kikis or Vitality Kikis? Who do you pick? That or this?
Wait, but what's the difference? Kikis plays the same way both ways. He does have a 6 sleeve now, but this guy loves to invade. He plays super aggressively, and it really worked on a team like Vitality where the laners were backing him up and making those invasive plays. Now, yesterday we actually saw it work again when he had a mid laner that was following up and he punished the Urgot in the jungle. So I want to see Rogue do more of that to back him up and make that Kikis better than this Kikis.
All right, it makes sense. I think that rounds up kind of what we want to see from Rogue. Of course, they had 2 wins. It'll be a miracle run if they get to playoffs, but you got to keep dreaming. And we must not forget that they'll come straight back for summer and can build on what they've brought in spring. So with some of the elements here, they could put up a fight rather against Splyce. And for Splyce, this is also very important. They've been a bit, I don't know, they've lost their way a little bit, I feel like, in the last couple of games after a very strong start. And when we look at the schedule, I mean, we see that Misfits is picking up wins, SK Gaming is starting to picking up wins, Origin is starting to pick up wins, Splyce is going to start to feel it. So this is one of those pivotal games for them.
I think what's really interesting about Splyce is, you know, we talk about them kind of being in the middle of the pack and often these gatekeepers who tend to beat the teams above them and struggle against the teams below them. And right now they're in a prime position to challenge Sjokz for 3rd. And a lot of that just comes from the thing is, you know, we talked yesterday about them being consistent. The reality is they are.
Yep.
They do still have very solid players. They still play well for the most part. And due to some of the chaos that has been happening in the middle of our league, that's actually benefited Splyce quite a lot. And I think one of the big things for me is that we see Norskeren now playing more playmakers. And even though they lost their game yesterday, I actually loved his Blitzcrank because I felt like that it was a much bigger indication of what this team can be, because it means that you don't just put all the reliance on Xerxe to be the big carry. There's someone else who can actually start off these fights and create opportunities for your team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think also in the beginning of the split, Humanoid was making some more aggressive moves. They seem to tend towards making some different plans for games than the age-old Splyce, but I think you're right in saying they've been consistent and they're up there right now in 4th place, which is great for them. We do have an unfortunate note for the lineup today. That is that Vizicachi is out due to illness, and Splyce have been permitted to use an emergency substitute in Orome from the Splyce Vipers. If we look at how that changes things, I talked to Juke a little bit. Of course, they haven't scrimmed with him at all, and throwing a guy in the mix will always be difficult. How much do you think it will affect them?
Well, I think it's going to affect them a lot, right? You lose a player like Chachi, that's going to be a big, big difference. Although I will say, if there's ever a match to sort of have your entrance into the LEC for Orome, going up against another new player like Finn is going to be a little bit of a easier road for him to get his feet under his way.
And it's someone that he's even played against before. They used to play against each other within the Spanish league a couple of years ago. And I think that for an introduction, what I think is cool about Splyce is Vizicachi was a very versatile player. So whether Orome prefers tanks or carries, I feel like Splyce can adapt their draft to be able to cater him and make sure that he has a healthy matchup so that he doesn't just get crushed in lane.
Rogue, 2 wins in a row. Is this their 3rd? Yes or no, and why?
For me, I voted for Splyce. I still have confidence because, again, I still consider them this gatekeeper team, that their consistency and skill allows them to beat the teams below them. And even though Rogue is on the up and up, I still think of them a team that sits near the bottom of the standings.
Andrew?
I'm with Splyce as well. I don't think Rogue are going to be able to have quite what it takes to take down this team.
All right, let's see. Will Splyce take a big step towards playoffs, or can Rogue continue their winning streak? Let's find out as we leave it to the casters. Hi, guys.
Hello.
There's
Hi,
no
Sjokz.
face.
This is the face of Rogue carried Twitter to the top of the superior analyst bracket, and still you doubt them, analysts. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It is, of course, Splyce versus Rogue. It's going to be an interesting day. We have Finn coming in. We have Orome on the opposite side for Splyce. I mean, always tough to see a player subbed out in this kind of situations. But as Ender was kind of saying, you're going up against another rookie top laner, so at least it's not, you know, Wonder that you're going toe-to-toe with. It's not one of these guys that's known to get aggressive in the laning phase and go for these huge advantages.
Yeah, and he's the unknown factor, and that's why I'm not necessarily all aboard the Rogue train, but I'm like, come on, guys. Whereas not even throwing Rogue a little bit of a bone. It feels like Splyce have been sitting in a bit of a rut, and Rogue are kind of on the up and up, or at least trying to put together these wins or put together a playstyle that's been working for them.
And yesterday, of course, they had an incredibly bloody game against Excel. It went back and forth. It felt like they were in control for the vast majority of the game. There were a few moments where you might have questioned that. But for now, as we enter the ban, Zoe going to be taken away. The Jace as well. A lot of these poke champions taken off the board. Now the Yasuo too. So Seeing a lot of the focus down on some of these strong flex picks, these strong solo laners.
And I find this one fairly interesting because it feels like a lot of the priority around bot laners like the Lucians and the Dravens kind of disappear when you face Rogue just because HeaQ has had a rough go of things. So I'm curious if the gauntlet will be thrown down because Cassio and Lucian are still open. By banning the Lucian, you're kind of daring HeaQ. Are you going to play the Cassio, or are you going to give us a very powerful second, third rotation from red side?
And I want to see if this is something that Kobbe's going to take, because we saw Cassio very early prioritized from Sjokz earlier today, and it was pretty underwhelming. It just was not a pick that felt like it was set up for success. So maybe Splyce have a different idea of what they want to prioritize here, what Orome is going to go for. The Urgot, of course, locked in for Finn. This has been a comfort pick for him, and I feel like a perfect pick to set a rookie up for success. Has clear goals, safe laning phase, very powerful team fighting. Definitely what you want. But now a safe pick for Kobbe as well, locked in on the side of the Splyce. We'll see what their second pick is going to be here.
Things like the Jarvan really stand out, any sort of flexible champion that you can put here. With Zoe ban, Lissandra can rise in priority, although Cassio does have a decent matchup into Lissandra, pending on the jungle matchup there.
Ooh, and now they're going to offer the Aatrox. And for me right now, I always feel like the second I see this one that it is going in the hands of Xerxe. Since the nerfs, I feel like we don't see it nearly as much in the mid lane or in the top lane. But maybe this is a comfort pick from Orome. Maybe we'll see what he can do up against Finn. That is, of course, the beauty of the flex pick.
Yep, the questions. I feel like it is going to be the jungle Aatrox, though, just because it feels that Xerxe has a lot of kind of not... I guess I'll call it pocket hits, things like the Karthus, things like the Aatrox that he'll always grab that have huge priority, higher from most teams because Xerxe is the jungler for Splyce.
And I just don't know if I'm ever excited to see Xerxe on the Aatrox or really any of these kind of proactive early game picks.
You don't like Aatrox?
It feels like he can get some work done, but he's just not nearly as effective in the early game as a lot of these other picks. Olaf being one of them, and giving Kikis Olaf, definitely a terrifying prospect. Not quite as terrifying as the Pantheon or the Electrocute Poppy, but definitely a little bit more reliable in terms of the meta tier list.
The thing about Kikis, though, is he's kind of a feast or famine jungler. He's always going to go for the aggressive play, regardless of kind of what's happening on the map around him. And when it does work out, Kikis can gain you a lot of ground, but he can also burn you just as quickly. And I feel like one of the biggest problems for Rogue, kind of this next hurdle that they need to overcome, is how they sync Sencux's playstyle with Kikis's playstyle. If you know Kikis is going to be that forward, aggressive, dueling Olaf-style jungler, Sencux needs to be ready to look for that early rotation to back his jungler up, and too often these guys are desynced.
And it seems like Splyce are aware of that as well, because they take a pick like Lissandra off the board, something that would make it so easy for Kikis to just run into that mid lane or any other place in that 2v2 and just find a quick kill. The Alistair, though, banned as well, limiting the engage option for Norskeren. Now we see the Rise taken off the board, so a lot of the mage focus on the side of Splyce, limiting those options for Sencux in the mid lane, whereas on the opposite side, Rogue just trying to take away some of these engage threats. Splyce are kind of lacking. Aatrox definitely not a very good primary engage threat.
Yeah, but you still have so much burst potential between the Ezreal and the LeBlanc. The poke damage when Kobbe and Humanoid are ever grouped up together is astronomical. But to me, kind of the big window here is Syndra. Syndra can be a great matchup into LeBlanc because you see her and then you automatically pop her like a balloon as when she distortions in. So that's what I have a feeling Sencux will go for.
Ooh, but it's always difficult because if you ever fall behind in that matchup, it does get so incredibly hard. Norskeren is a big playmaker. He is a flashy player as well, so I'm going to be pretty hyped, honestly, if this man locks in the Pyke right now, and he does.
Get your hype.
All right, I'm ready. Can, of course, CC the Olaf, but could look for those resets in the fights. We'll have to see. That feels like a ton of pick potential here for Froskurinn between the LeBlanc, the Pyke, and the burst of the reworked Ezreal. Somebody's going to die.
Multiple rotations through multiple spells. It feels like Pyke is kind of like a fishing champion. He throws it out, but he doesn't commit on the first go. He has to wait. But when you can whittle people down with all of that poke damage, Pyke can really have a field day with his executions.
And Rogue now rounding out their composition. I feel like because they saved their AD carry mid lane picks, that we could have seen anything come out here that would have really define the composition, and with the Sivir already locked in, if the Corki does fall, ooh, Froskurinn, I'm talking about team fights right now. This is an insane team fighting composition.
Yeah, it's really powerful, but I kind of want to get into the mentality of Sencux here. So you have a couple of options that you can go for. Maybe you take the Syndra into the LeBlanc. It's going to be a skill-based matchup. You try to catch her with the Scatter the Weak, then blow her up. Or you're like, I'm going to play it super safe. I'm going to do the Sencux thing. I'm going to build Hexdrinker in the lane, and I'm going to stay away from this guy.
I'm not about that life. I'm talking 1,300 gold. Give me that Hexdrinker. Give me that shield. Keep me alive. Well, it's going to be hard to stay alive because there are a lot of champions who want to get some work done in the early game here. Lee Sin being one of them now in the hands of Xerxe, and this is what I wanted to see. Orome in the top lane, I want to see what he will do up against Finn, but more importantly, Xerxe on a proactive early game champion. That feels like the recipe for success on the side of Splyce.
And we say this all the time about Splyce. They don't have to be the 35-minute team. They often draft for the early game. But while they draft for the early game, they don't play through the early game. They don't execute on these springboards, these snowballs that they need to get it going. And the big window or the hole in Splyce's game plan has been around their mid-game. They don't snowball off of early game. They kind of stall out in the mid-game, and then they just rely on their clutch moments and their clutch plays in the late game to make them that 35-minute team. But Splyce, give me the development.
Yeah, because if it comes to, I mean, all they're going to have in the late game is clutch plays. Because let me tell you, you look at back-to-front team fighting right now, I'm talking Sivir, Braum, Urgot.
You're talking
Corki.
easy mode.
The only champion I'm not really talking about in the late game right now for the side of Rogue was Olaf, but even if he gets fed, he can be a massive threat. So burden of execution in late game fights would definitely be on the side of Splyce to try to find a way to force something. But Rogue, if they can survive this early game, I feel like things are very much in their favor. We'll find out. Inevitably, all eyes must go to the jungle matchup. The two rookie top laners, we will talk about at some point, but for now, Kikis versus Xerxe. This is going to be a high point. Lee Sin versus the Olaf.
Both of them very aggressive junglers, dueling-oriented champions with the Lee Sin and the Olaf. Xerxe has been kind of the one constant for Splyce's early game. You know he's going to gank, and he is going to do it often. Can he be successful on these ganks?
And where's he going to put his attention? A lot of setup CC. He has the damage to back up just about anyone. You got the LeBlanc to start a gank. He engaged on the bottom side with the Pyke. Rogue fans out here today, ready to cheer the squad on. It was a long drought for the Rogue fan base finding these wins, but now they've started to pick them up left and right, and it doesn't look like they're going to stop anytime soon. We check in on the game. And Froskurinn, we've talked a lot about bot lane. You, of course, a good bot laner. Me, of course, a dirty cheeser in the bot lane.
This animal plays the stupidest things in the bot lane.
Don't you dare disrespect Ivern Rengar. Indiana, Froskurinn, Black. That lane is insane. But regardless, it will never get played, so we don't have to talk about it anymore until Ender's here. That'll be next game. For now, HeaQ, lethal tempo on the Sivir. Walk me through this one.
So the idea is that you want to hit the boomerang blade and then use the attack speed to get the push onto the wave. And I think it's just kind of a nice mixture of having your push priority as well as a lot of damage there. The cool thing about Sivir is that she has a lot of versatility in her keystones. You can see the fleet footwork, you can see the lethal tempo, and it's just kind of what play style you want to attack with this Sivir. And with teleport, I have a feeling it's going to be the push.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you throw it at the minion wave, you hit all the minions, and you hit a champion, you get attack speed steroid, and it just feels like there's just absolutely no way that a Pyke Ezreal can contest this level 1. And on top of that, Kobbe and Norskeren have been pulled up for a leash. This does mean that they're going to get a bit faster start here for the Lee Sin, but it means that HeaQ and VandeR have uncontested access to the level 1, which means they're just basically guaranteed to get that level 2 first, set themselves up for absolute success.
And this actually means a lot. You talked about how not only are Kobbe and Norskeren then going to get pushed in, but Pyke doesn't have a lot of wave clear on his kit. He's more of a win more support, and Ezreal really only has priority over the wave if he gets access to hitting you with those mystic shots. So if you build up a big creep wave in front of him, obviously he loses a lot of his power to control the lane phase. Though VandeR's trying to give it back.
It's okay. Throwing a little bit of health. The difficult part is it's very hard to engage on either one of these champions, but of course, for HeaQ and VandeR, this isn't solo queue. They're not worried about finding the kills. They can just push this lane out and be content that the pressure point will give their team an advantage. We'll have to respect the Lee Sin, though, as he is on the bottom side. Xerxe could try to make a play here. Pyke level 2 will be coming in shortly. Obviously a huge point, but HeaQ and VandeR moving up, getting that vision. They now spotted the Scuttle Crab. They know where Xerxe is, and tracking the jungler in the early game is huge.
Yeah, I really like that heads-up play, knowing that they were going to push forward. That was their plan from the very beginning, taking that keystone and automatically saying, okay, they've leashed for the Lee Sin. He's on the bottom side of the map. Let's not expose ourselves to a possible gank here.
And now I'm just checking in on the pathing. I want to see where the next focus is going to be. You see Kikis has backed off, got the level 3, and is now returning to his bot side jungle.
Meanwhile,
Sencux taking a lot of damage.
Full clear for Olaf here. Cleared out the top side as well as Scuttle. Then reset, walks to Krugs, or excuse me, now walking to Raptors. No, Krugs. He pinged it though.
He's debating. I mean,
like, I want the early Krug reset.
There's a plethora of camps here for our boy Kikis. Xerxe, they're going to get red buff. Could look to play around top side. Set the rookie up for success. Obviously, incredible synergy between Xerxe and Vizichachi. See if some of the same synergy is there for Orome. Maybe the emergency substitute has some fire in his belly, ready to make a play. For now, Xerxe hovering around the mid lane, trying to bait in. They have, of course, the setup on the ethereal chains. If LeBlanc can connect on the target, Norskeren moving now to but Sencux just leaps out to safety. Sonic Wave goes wide, and Sencux holding on. Now, earlier you said he can try to go toe-to-toe. He can try to match the Syndra. And now I think he's pretty glad he didn't, given that 3 champions were in his lane just moments ago.
It's also just classic Sencux. It feels like he constantly plays lane phase very defensively, which is interesting because when Sencux really made his debut on the stage, there was a lot of hype built up around him that he was going to be, you know, the next possible EU mid laner to make a splash, and never really lived up to it. And now he feels very invisible to Splyce, or excuse me, to Rogue.
Yeah, and I mean, he had a fantastic game yesterday. You know, there were a few fumble moments where he missed those key Zoe skill shots, but when he hit them, those were the defining moments in the game to help turn it for Rogue.
I mean, but frankly, that game stalled out longer than it needed to because Sencux was unable to hit the necessary skill shots. So he's the guy that I really need to have a performance increase and a performance step up if Rogue want to continue with their streaks.
And I'm curious, do you feel like the burden of execution is on Sencux in this game? Because I think with the Zoe game, it was very clear that he needed to land the Sleepy Troubles, that he needed to land the poke. But now on a Corki, it does feel a little bit like he's put in less of a position where he feels like he needs to get something done. Although snap flash from Kikis.
He saw that Norskeren had rotated over, didn't want to take any chances there. Feast or famine.
Don't
This
want
time
to
it's
give it up.
flash away.
Not interested. Never see Kikis, of course, does run away from the fight, but does have the camp advantage. So if no one's able to capitalize on the flash in the next 5 minutes, then he will have come out on top. He will have gotten the last laugh, Froskurinn.
No, I don't think so.
Camp advantage, Frosco. Holding on to something. It is an advantage. Norskeren going to throw out the hook here. Just walking into the wave, threatening, forcing them back. Kobbe just returns to lane. Has not opted for the tier for the early stack. Instead will offer the Sheen to try to match some of the pressure that HeaQ and VandeR are putting out. Of course, Sivir with a TP of her own to make sure that they can get a good back to Norskeren. Just trying to use the Pyke mobility to stop the recalls, to try to make sure that this back is just not well timed on the side of Rogue.
Hold on, round 2. Again, you're looking for those chains. Oh, PowerPoint.
See, this is how we build tension, folks. It's like the Grudge, snapping in, snapping out. Ooh. Going in. Sencux, why would you go that way? That is definitely not the way you want it to go. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say that was a misclick. Big mistake on the side of Sencux. Definitely wanted to Valkyrie back to safety. Valkyrie's into the LeBlanc. Big, big risk.
Might need to itemize defensively early now a little bit.
Has a Ruby Crystal and a Null Magic Mantle, so that has... All right, we're gonna have to look at that one again, because I do not want to just assume a player misclicked, but that was bad. That was real bad.
Didn't feel good. That's fine.
But it's fine. We're back in the game.
Off.
Level 6. Trinity Force is a lot of gold away. Hex Drinker much closer. Ha!
Okay, here's your round 2. Oh, we even got the PowerPoint on this one too.
Got him. Okay, here we go.
Got ganked 4 times.
Here's the call. Okay. I don't know. I feel like in Sencux's head, he just was... I feel like if you'll bear with me, audience, that like the screen did not show the Lee Sin to him. He was too far panned up and thought that the Olaf was coming and that they were going to turn this play around. That's my theory. You can give your own at twitter.com as to what exactly happened there.
Like how we're crowdsourcing.
Or definitely crowdsourcing, because I'm not sure. I feel like I had to have missed something. Like I said, I never want to doubt a pro player, but that did feel real bad. Orome remaining on the top side, of course, 8 CS lead, using a lot of the early wave clear coming in from the Aatrox to pressure out the Urgot. Nice place to have. And sadly for Sencux, falling behind against LeBlanc is one of the worst feelings on the face of the planet.
And it's about to get worse as now Norskeren is taking a trip through memory lane.
He's coming back.
I think Sencux, this guy, very scared. Very defensive player. He is going to step forward to clear the wave, and then he is going to hide under his tower.
Ooh. Kikis might want to be scared too. Of course, does not have the flash. Orome now trying to move in on the top side. Finn has already used the ultimate, though, and just has to flash out to safety. So at the end of the day, Orome winning out on this trade.
Meanwhile, bottom.
Norskeren.
We're still fighting.
One stack there on the concussive blows. Very hard to lock down any of these champions on the Splyce lineup, though. Very difficult to fully commit to a play, especially for an Olaf.
The great vision wars of 8 minutes in the game, and Norskeren, I think, is the real winner here.
It's a war of attrition. This is trench warfare going back and forth. Sencux, though, with the package, well-highlighted observers, he can use that to also clear the wave because LeBlanc is terrifying.
And
a Lost Chapter level 7 LeBlanc, very difficult to deal with when you only have a phage.
And I think she's also... Okay, no, the wave finally hit the tower. I was going to say, Humanoid was trying to set up a bit of a freeze there to punish Sencux even further here, but Rogue with the package are trying to make a big power play on this Infernal.
Difficult spot. Rogue, though, taking this will be important. They have so many damage threats on their team. This will help out the Corki and the Sivir immensely. Ooh, nice block coming in from VandeR to stop any potential steal there coming in from the Ezreal ult. Xerxe, though, will take away a blue buff in response, but securing that early Infernal is going to be very nice for Rogue.
Yeah, excellent play by Rogue there to recognize that they were losing priority into the mid lane, but they had a good back timing with it. Like we said, using that package power to secure or assist in helping secure the Infernal Dragon, and that's just going to feel good, especially on Corki.
Absolutely. And now, of course, we have to remember, like, when you look at the win conditions for this team, Splyce are the team that we kind of expect to get ahead in the early game. They have so many tools to do so with the LeBlanc in the mid lane, and you know, with this Aatrox pushing in on the top side, and there's no doubt in our mind, even if Rogue can match a lot of this early game pressure, that Rogue have a lot of the stronger champions late game, on paper at least.
Yeah, but then it's going to come down to execution, and that's where they've
VandeR.
recently been struggling. He's okay.
It's good. Good use of the Unbreakable to block the Phantom Undertow there.
So I want to talk about Sivir a little bit into the Ezreal lane. I feel like we're seeing this matchup pop up significantly, and a lot of people will assume that Sivir is just kind of the soft counter to Ezreal because of how the Spell Shield can absorb a lot of his Mystic shots, but the cooldown is so long on Spell Shield that it actually doesn't work like that, and I feel like Sivir is increasing in priority not just because of the changes in the crit itemization, that she now has better item build paths, but she's basically just an unmovable object from that lane. Because of the ability to constantly get mana back, and so you just step forward and be like, Ezreal, hit me, thanks for the mana, she just sits in that lane forever, and it's about using the pressure that she can apply to a side of the map to open up the jungler rather than being a direct counter to the Ezreal pick.
And when you look at the way pick bans unfold recently with Lucian and Draven, the champions that might actually be able to threaten the Sivir and kill her, they're just gone every single game. So it feels like maybe the threat in the past could have been running into this champion who, yes, has excellent wave clear, but probably doesn't outduel the likes of a Draven early on. And Ezreal definitely just does not have enough burst damage to kill the Sivir here in lane. And we've all seen Sivir wave clear. Sencux does have to leap out to safety, but Humanoid. I think one of the worst things about playing against LeBlanc Froskurinn is not the burst damage, but the fact that you don't really get to decide how things happen because Xerxe is deciding it for you. Kill again onto Sencux. No hesitation there from the Lee Sin.
And Sencux cannot catch a break. And I feel like that exact play has happened to him about 5 times so far in the LEC because he keeps facing these Lee Sins and they keep going over the wall and they keep kicking him in the head.
Difficult game for Sencux. Almost a 30 CS deficit. Rogue, though, continuing to get these major objectives at this point in the game. Norskeren, I think trying to look for that Unbreakable. Obviously going to be a big one. Finn here's on the backside. Now just going to use On the Hunt. Finn says, surprise. Urgot ready to go in. Is going to knock back there. Norskeren could just get pulled back into the team, but the shield comes out. And ulti not going to finish the kill there, putting Rogue in a tough spot. Kobbe on the backside. Ezreal ulti. Already been used, so not going to be available here. Both teams just poking at each other, but Kikis does manage to secure the Eye of the Herald, so at the end of the day, Splyce not really able to contest that one too well.
Yeah, and I want to give huge credit to VandeR there. Yeah, it's not like the flashy plays that you're seeing from the Braum, but with pulling VandeR onto the roster, a lot of people are assuming that you have, clear shot calling identity for Rogue, and they just look worlds different since adding him to the roster, making that early rotation, making sure that he's present to take the Herald, because it's now 2 massive objectives in the Infernal and the Herald that Rogue have gotten basically uncontested by Splyce. They just take it and they walk away.
And yeah, when you look back at the early leagues, a lot of times they did look incredibly lost, but despite the improvements for Rogue, there are still a few vulnerable points, and Xerxe now looking to expose them as Sencux sadly already burned the Valkyrie. He knows this is all but confirmed, flashes in just to make sure there's no chance for Sencux to respond, and oof, faceplant straight into the ground. Interestingly, Froskurinn checking on the game state. It's 12 minutes, 30 seconds of the game. Splyce 2K gold lead. An Infernal Drake for Rogue, but we are obviously going to have to wait a while for that one to balance out the massive gold difference. And we had Whipple, of course, on Euphoria podcast to talk about how a 2K gold difference can feel like a 5K gold difference. And for us, I feel like it's time to see where Splyce want to put the pressure, because they are definitely in the lead. They definitely have the raw power to force some action. Just where is it going to be?
For me, it's also the fact that it's on 2 items. So they have 1 item completed pretty much across the board from majority of their champions. So it's not just that they have that early gold lead that feels so much stronger, as Whipple was saying, on this type of patch, but it's on champions that are going to peak much faster, much earlier than Rogue's champion. So that can kind of be the way back in, despite losing some of these monster objectives for Splyce.
And then, of course, on the upside for Rogue, as they buy time, we are looking for where the Rift Herald is going to go. But as you mentioned, first items have come in. Now the Luden's Echo, very aggressive itemization for the LeBlanc, whereas you can see much more defensive Iceborne Gauntlet for Kobbe.
The Hex Drinker came in. Sencux is like, finally, some breathing room. For Rift Herald, though, it feels like you have two options. You can either try to use it mid lane, although with Kobbe losing that so hard on the hold on.
Kikis, unstoppable, but definitely not unkillable. Ignite is there as well. Norskeren going to leap forward. The Ignite still ticking. Great Zhonya's. There's no way he survives. Kikis does go down in the end. Kobbe going to snipe that one out with the Mystic Shot.
I was going to say, you have two options. You can try to use it mid lane to help salvage this lane slightly, but I wouldn't do it because it feels like you're just throwing that into a hole. Or you can try to double down and use it with your duo bot lane, wherever they happen to be, and try to make a cross-map trade and get more for it with the Rift Herald. Because they don't have mid lane priority at all, being in that river, as you just saw Kikis dying, so dangerous for Rogue.
And so incredibly high risk. Kikis, though, of course, a man not afraid to take these risks, not afraid to make big plays to bring his team back to the game, maybe hoping to find a bit of a setup there, but obviously in this case, it counts against him. Definitely not ideal. Of course, turret plating has now fallen, though, so despite the pressure advantage that Kobbe and Norskeren are able to use there on the top side, it doesn't give them any of that gold that the turret plating would have earlier on. HeaQ just continues to be this wave clear bot, this immovable force, as you talked about, Froskurinn. Norskeren pretty much immediately says, okay, it's time to leave the lane. Kobbe can sit here under this tower and just survive.
Sencux again with package. I think he's just going to use it to clear the wave, though.
Man, the nice thing about Corki is that, at least as far as champions go, both the Sivir and the Corki at a certain point do just have a ton of wave clear. And while it is not the terrifying 2 or 3 item Corki that can just 3-shot anyone on the opposite team.
Wait, he's going bottom. Nope, we're going back mid.
This is how we're going to talk about Sencux plays from now on, is like deep voice for Sencux plays.
I feel like it just has to be very soothing.
Norskeren going in. Xerxe going to get the kick back. HeaQ with a spell shield to block it out. Sidestepping here. Well played by HeaQ to try to make it out of this one, but there's just too many members on the top side. VandeR has to give his life up. Well played by the Splyce lineup. Herald comes in bot side, though. Urgot can continue to push forward. Kick is going to grab the Drake as well, and now Humanoid trying to force a play in the mid lane. At the end of the day, Rogue are trading well on these objectives. They're going to grab a tower. They may look to grab another tower, too. Immediately, you see the Aatrox backing up to try to stop the second tower from going down. Kobbe is barely going to be able to grab that top lane tower, as they will remain uncontested. And Finn is just going to back off here in the end. But honestly, pretty good trade in the end for Rogue.
Yeah, the big thing was, of course, getting that much damage on an inner tower. But hold on, Humanoid.
Has to be careful. That's an immense amount of damage. Challenging smite. Humanoid going back. That is a brave move. Kikis can't be disabled. Orome coming forward. The flash to secure it in the end. Well played by the new rookie top laner to make sure that kill goes down. Kikis, whew, bold strategies.
And we need a reminder that, you know, the Aatrox from Splyce's lineup is still technically a flex pick now in 3 positions, going top, jungle, as well as Humanoid. He's popping off on the LeBlanc, but he did pop off previously on that Aatrox, showing that he can play some of these assassin picks. And VandeR, he was a sacrificial lamb here. He knew he was dead, but they committed a lot, and meanwhile, it meant that the Rift Herald got so much work and damage done across map. So now it is 1 for 1 of the towers. Of course, still a gold lead building for Splyce. No doubt that they are in the lead, but do have a few glimmers of hope in that the objective game, it feels like it has been going in favor of Rogue overall. Sadly, as we check in on the farm, not everything in that regard going to Rogue. You do have Sivir staying even with the Ezreal, but a pretty big advantage for LeBlanc in the mid lane, decent advantage for Aatrox, wherever he wants to find his home these days, and Lee and Olaf about the same. But we talked about kind of that pocket that Splyce's composition really sits in, and they're in it right now, which is why they're being so aggressive and so proactive around this map about how they're invading Rogue, using you know, aggressive forward vision and trying to see what they can trade. Orome playing very far forward here, trying to do his best to clear out the wave. The tower will still go down. Splyce trying to get one for themselves, hoping to put the solo gold on the Humanoid, but not a lot of tower pressure going to come in for the LeBlanc at this stage of the game. You know, we gave Sencux a tough time, but he's kind of the bastion of hope in keeping this mid lane tower alive for so long. It's a big stall for Splyce. Holding on. Seeing what they can do on the side of Rogue, getting closer to the Trinity Force. Key point. Humanoid, though, just gets closer and closer to double magic pen items. Oblivion Orb surely next to come, as on top of the Sorcerer's Shoes, and will be able to grab this tower. Finn, terrified to approach here. Only has armor and health in terms of effective stats to resist the LeBlanc. Oh no. Comes Xerxe. Finn. Good to stay. Move out. Kick still comes in. I feel like Xerxe was just letting him know he had it. Maybe wanted to go for the kick flash there, but just couldn't find the angle. Hard to be sure, but does burn that cooldown in the end. And I want to see Finn on a wider variety of champions. Obviously, you have the Urgot pick it for free, but I don't really know where to place him in kind of the rankings of top laners. I like kind of the heads-up communication to recognize that he needed to back off the tower to just give it away for free. But he's gotten Urgot so many times, and Urgot as a champion can really hide top laners because he's just free in so many of the things that he does. He's free in trades, free in execution, free in a lot of his wave priority.
Really strong in team fights. Of course, all it takes is a single ult to define a team fight, even if you are a little bit behind in that role.
I'm just curious that if Urgot possibly faces some nerfs and isn't a high priority champion
and by possibly
anymore,
you mean next patch, live patch.
if Finn is still going to look as impressive as his start on Rogue has been, because I believe he's sitting at 100% win rate so far with the team.
Yeah, looking pretty good overall. Checking in though, of course, big objectives coming up is the Baron, but neither team really in a great position to start it. Neither team has some kind of insane Baron-taking team. There's no Cassios here. There are no Karthuses. So it feels like it's going to be a lot more about starting to break down these tier 2s, moving around the map. And for Rogue, that means moving into the mid lane. Kobbe and Norskeren are going to do what they can to stop this push from coming through. The creep waves not favored to either side at this stage.
And for Splyce, that means that they need to get their vision denial game in charge. Because they have such reliable poking tools like the LeBlanc and the Ezreal, their composition is really scary when they get darkness over an area. And you have to check blindly into Fog of War and eat all of that poke.
And Finn is checking blindly into Fog of War, but luckily has enough tanky stats and there are enough members not around on the Splyce lineup that he does get to survive. Humanoid on the top side does give a lot of comfort. He's just, that's LeBlanc, guys. Really hard to lock that champion down.
Yeah, but Rogue are still exactly where they want to be, which is the inside track to the top tower.
Humanoid debating. We'll have time to get that distortion back up just to clear the wave, so they do get a little bit of damage down.
Just running Splyce around the map and chipping away at them slowly. Yeah, it's not really showcased in the gold lead, but Rogue are still kind of calling the shots here about where Splyce are responding to them on the map. And we talk about how Splyce have this big hole in their mid game where they kind of look a little bit lost. Maybe they're not finding the right lane assignments. Maybe they're not executing exactly where they need to. And this is kind of that play where they wander a little bit. They can't quite be as decisive as they need to be. And then it turns into that 35-minute Splyce game.
Not where they want to be. You saw earlier how long their game time is. They're 10th in terms of game time, the slowest games on average. And Froskurinn, the other thing that I like that I'm seeing from Rogue is that, yes, obviously you still have some individual performances that fall a little flat here in the early game. Sencux obviously getting picked on a little bit. Kikis maybe overstaying his welcome. But one thing that has improved immensely for Rogue from their first few games in the split is that they're much better at taking a game slow when they are put in a deficit, not falling prey to a lot of these more aggressive plays on the opposite side. As I said that, I got really nervous because their Norskeren was ready to make a play. Just to be complete, I am ready at any moment for this Pyke to go in.
I don't know if Splyce are ready, though. I feel like they always load their compositions with a lot of these, trigger champions.
Yeah,
like
someone
Pyke
has to go.
And the Lee Sin, but they never pull it.
Humanoid, though, on the side, can start to pressure the tier 2. Going to be very difficult for anyone to match LeBlanc in side lane. Urgot may have the tanky stats if he gets a little bit more MR under spell, but for now it's just armor. And so instead, they're going to send HeaQ. That's a bit of a rough one. There's Lee Sin here, too. I like this from Splyce. HeaQ now just going to run using the ultimate. Chains going down, electrocute, immediately forced off the wave, and that means a tier 2 tower. But once again, Rogue responding for an objective, with an objective, trading the tower for a Drake here in the end.
I'm going to say, as we get closer to the Baron being live, however, this is still a trade up for Splyce, having that much control over the top side of the map, and you can see that represented in their vision. It makes it that much easier to get behind this mid lane structure, because this is kind of, again, the last bastion of hope. As soon as Splyce crack this, the ability to set up around Baron is that much easier, because you can get so much more information deeper down the map to figure out what Rogue are doing.
Yeah, Sencux is holding on. You got to give him that credit. Trinity Force now finished, the Sorcerer's Shoes as well. We have to assume he's building towards the Rapid Fire Cannon next. Giving him more wave code, giving him more range options. Is going to start to hit a little bit harder. You can see Kobbe stepping back. Kind of the scary point now is LeBlanc is very strong, and Kobbe is at that 2-item power spike for Ezreal, and even more terrifying is that he has the Archangels. Kikis, unstoppable now, is going to use the Redemption to keep himself alive.
And you're seeing how strong Splyce are right now. We keep talking about they're in this pocket. The problem is that Rogue haven't gotten in the pocket with them, but as soon as they do hit Rogue, they hit really hard. So Splyce, just be decisive. Just start hitting them.
See, Humanoid hits hard, but he's on top side, catching this wave. Not going to have the opportunity to dive. Norskeren stepping forward. Xerxe's here as well. Sencux.
Here we go.
Let's get out. Brief power point moment. And they are going to be able to take down this tier 1. Sencux just has to retreat, so good use of pressure from Splyce. Sometimes they can kill people, sometimes they just have to threaten. Sencux will back off in the end.
We talked about how they were finally able to leverage deep wards behind that tower, and it meant that the mid tower would soon fall. So Splyce, again, recognizing exactly where they need to attack on the map this time around.
Froskurinn, this is starting to remind me 2017 Spring Vitality on the side of Rogue. Because while I'm like, ooh, there's small mistakes, but no one's really throwing. They're trading objective for objective. They are just slowly kind of losing the game. Because the gold lead is only getting bigger for Splyce. We said 2K gold lead feels like a 5K gold lead. Well, now 2K gold lead is a 6K gold lead. 23 minutes into the game. And while champion scaling, obviously fantastic. Corki, Sivir, we can talk about it endlessly. 500 Sivir win condition, meme. But
no, I actually want to stop you there, because while I agree, if you get enough items on Sivir, she's going to hit very hard. But one of the things that's scary about Sivir is she's still rather fragile. You know, she doesn't have built-in dashes in her kit like a champion that Ezreal does, and you can see how scared HeaQ is to step up and find the free farm, which means he has to wait that much longer for the waves to crash into him. He's only stepping this far forward because he's got 2 people underneath him. And then you lose a lot of map priority while you are waiting for those big items.
And what's really terrifying too is that Braum can often be such a great way to protect an AD carry, and Sivir with the spell shield too. But if Humanoid is far enough ahead and you hit to that LeBlanc nightmare state where she can just double distortion and pop your AD carry, which I honestly think that he's probably in right now, then Braum is really not that useful. A lot of damage comes in there. Luckily it hits Kikis, so HeaQ is going to be completely fine. Now pressure on the top side for Rogue. Humanoid fishing for this opportunity, but Rogue definitely on the front end of this play. Kobbe now coming up. Very strong Ezreal at this point in the game. Will do a lot of damage if he gets the opportunity.
So the escort service for HeaQ is just applying as much pressure on the top side as possible. And the big thing for Rogue is they just need to make sure that while these resources are top, although I'm going to hold the point.
LeBlanc? Oh, they want a LeBlanc. You can't. But good effort there. They are going to get the flash out from Humanoid. Well played, but now Xerxe here on the back end. Ooh, Splyce smell blood in the water. They're ready to make this play happen. Ocean ticking up. They're going to get more health on the side of Rogue.
Here
TP now
Sencux.
Responded to. Pyke goes in. They may just look to get the resets here. Pyke starts popping off. It's going to be a big fight. Sencux and HeaQ, the guys you have to keep your eye on. Humanoid trying to find a way onto the back line. Unbreakable now already burned, but Orome has found the kill onto Sencux. That's going to be a big one. VandeR is next. Double kill now coming in. Pyke on the chase. Flash out from Olaf is going to stop the resets there. Norskoren's going to have to back off. Has to be careful. Dashes out to safety. Finn now in trouble as Kobbe starts to chase him down. The flash over the wall. Kobbe's going to do so much damage here. The double tier scaling is immense. And now the AD carry on a killing spree.
The only saving grace here is the fact that there's so many low health members, and with Kikis and HeaQ still alive and around the Baron, it means that Splyce can't immediately turn on the objective. So yes, they lose a lot of kills. Yes, Splyce finally got a hold of Rogue, but it doesn't translate into anything bigger.
I mean, but that is the silver lining on what is a very gray cloud right now for the Rogue lineup. That is still an 8K gold advantage for this Splyce team. The LeBlanc continues to get scary. The Aatrox is also apparently very strong. That's the first time we've really seen him hit a champion, but doing a lot of work there.
And I was curious what kind of the 3-man roaming squad of Xerxe, Norskeren, and Kobbe were going to get done, because it felt like they were deciding, do we keep shoving into Sencux, who's hiding under the tower, and then just giving him free farm, or do we finally collapse on Rogue overextending? And that was eventually the call.
Oh, and you see Orome just in this meat grinder where Kobbe just throws poke down, and eventually Humanoid gets to find a way in as well. And of course, once you start winning a team fight, Pyke makes sure generally that you just keep winning it, trying to find those resets. Could have been even worse if Kikis did not flash out to safety. And Finn, this point in the game, sadly, double tier Ezreal, very strong. Even Archangel Staff, of course, much stronger once it turns into Seraphs, but even once you get that AP scaling, it's good. But Xerxe,
Where are both junglers going?
That's not your team. He still manages to make it out, though. Kikis is now going to die, too. This is a mess. Finn now running for his life. Has to retreat. The rest of Splyce now chasing. Finn caught out. Sencux, no package available. Maybe wants to get something done here, but just walks up and now wants to keep it going. Does trade the 1-for-1. Humanoid now trying to finish off Sencux. Pyke ulti comes in. No chance for the Hexdrinker to do anything. Infernal goes in favor of Splyce, ladies and gentlemen. I am not sure what we just witnessed.
That is true chaos style there from that team fight. Multiple flights happening everywhere, but in the end, still another huge win for Splyce. They take the Infernal. Now that they have the health bars, they can walk over to the Baron, especially because Kikis is also dead.
Gonna start this one up. Baron, of course, a huge objective. Without it, Rogue may have had the time to scale up. You can see frustration on the face of Sencux. Really no opportunities in this game. Was singled out, was picked on this entire time. Cannot find those hero moments in these big plays. Humanoid now trying to find a flank. HeaQ, VandeR, desperately trying to get something. Norskeren peeking in. Kikis on the way. Chasing forward. Baron at 4K. It's going to start to heal up again. HeaQ immediately deleted. VandeR facing the wrong way. Kobbe just going to move for the kill. Is going to go unstoppable. Norskeren retreating as the Baron almost finishes him off. But more kills going down as Kikis waits in the brush. Maybe thinks they're going to start it again. Maybe thinks they'll go for the Baron, but nothing really left for Rogue at this stage of the game.
And great use of making all of that vision that had previously been laid around the Baron that Humanoid was able to maneuver around behind HeaQ. As we take another look at that fight, I like how both junglers just went completely opposite directions.
Completely off.
And who was going to die first? Was it going to be Kikis? Was it going to be Xerxe? Xerxe obviously able to worm his way out of that one on the Lee Sin, whereas Olaf not so lucky. Did get the shutdown on Aatrox though for Finn.
Yes. Bright side. Gets the fear as well. Sencux thinks he has the opportunity, but it's not going to happen. We got to go back to live, though, folks. Action could be coming in quick and fast. It's a 6K health Baron. Where is Kikis going to go? Has no flash, does have the ulti, can run face first to the pit. Very difficult to contest a Lee Sin on this deal. Even more difficult if you're dead. Kikis is dead. 3K and dropping, no doubt. This is a Splyce-dominated match thus far. HeaQ now in trouble. Spell Shield buys a bit more time. Humanoid now pulled back. Finn trying to turn this one around. Kikis now on the backside. Maybe they keep the fight going. They've stopped the Baron for now. Well played by the rookie Rogue top laner to find that opportunity.
And Finn right now is kind of the saving grace for Rogue in these team fights, at least trying to stall out the Baron this time around. And I don't think it means that they're going to push down the mid tower, but they'll at least shove in that wave. And again, Rogue have managed to survive another Baron attempt from Splyce.
Now 30 minutes, 2-14 the kill score, but a few mistakes here and there from Splyce, stopping them from accelerating the pace of the game, stopping them from using this gold lead to end the game. Norskeren, though, free to put down a lot of vision, free to set up for the next major objective if he chooses.
I mean, we say that, but Splyce is sitting on close to a 10K gold lead at this point in the game.
It's true. I mean, you can see Kikis basically just get absolutely murdered here. And how did Finn find this kill onto Humanoid? Keeping an eyes on it. Of course, you can see HeaQ up to the side, very close, but just runs face first in there, and difficult spot to be.
Difficult to face check into the Urgot.
Difficult to face check into the Urgot. Of course, a lot of burst damage when he uses the Summer Spellbook to get that Ignite on top of the ultimate. Now has an Exhaust courtesy of the Summer Spellbook, so Finn making the Urgot work. You can see why they priority picked this champion for him. Still able to find an impact in the game even when they are at a deficit.
This is still just massive advantage for Splyce, however. The issue is that you're dealing with all of the wave clear and push that Corki and Sivir will get. So even though Corki's sitting at 0-4-1, his ability to clear the wave to still pack a punch is quite significant at this point.
And also, of course,
he's so delayed on items, though.
He's so far behind Froskurinn. There's just not enough. Can we check the gold on Corki? On Corki here.
Oh, that hurts.
2.5K deficit, just brutal.
He's literally just a wave clear bot at this point.
It really is a tough spot to be. Norskeren now going to potentially try to find the flank, but Finn's still running forward. Looks like split push is the name of the game for Splyce. Don't want to go toe-to-toe in the team fight. Norskeren just trying to buy a bit of time. Maybe they're hoping to fish for a pick here. Xerxe's going to back him up, but LeBlanc and Aatrox now looking to collapse. Humanoid, what can he get done?
It's just so hard for Splyce to force the fight, which is why they need to play around the objective like the Baron, not just because they want it so they can siege with it, but also because it forces Rogue to kind of come out of their hole instead of playing the wave push game and actually fight them.
Feels like Splyce just really need this Baron. I wonder if they'll pull off to try to find another fight win or if they'll just focus on securing this one this time around. VandeR alive has used the Unbreakable. Big cooldown, important to watch in the fight. Humanoid on the backside. That flank is going to be key if Splyce want to find success here. Hook pulls back. Humanoid trying to find his way to the backside, but Rogue are ready for this one. On the hunt bird, but HeaQ's all alone on the front line. Has used the spell shield. Now starting to throw out a few attacks. Orome, though, getting the reset. Splyce now Kobbe going godlike, pulling back. Finn coming in, trying to look for the reset. We'll get the fear in the middle of the team. Sencux finally finding a kill to shut down on the Kobbe. Norskeren desperately trying to find the retreat. Rogue are winning the fights. The gold deficit does not matter when you are getting outplayed. Norskeren finding it onto HeaQ, but immediately the carries are falling left and right. Froskurinn, this game is a bloodbath.
Rogue's composition is just so much easier to execute in these team fights. The fact that Finn is just going God mode right now with the Urgot, rocking into the entire team, finding the execution when he needs to. Even though Kobbe is putting down so much damage, it's not enough.
Norskeren trying to solo out Kikis here, just trying to buy time. I think maybe hoping to stop Rogue from doing the Baron. They weren't potentially in a position to follow up there. Now just waiting on the flank, and what?
It feels like we're going to get multiple tries at these attempted team fights, and unless Splyce can execute on this, all they're doing is feeding in more time for Rogue's composition to outscale them. This is still a Corki, this is still a Sivir, and again, it is so much easier to play with these champions in these team fights. There's less skill shots that you need to hit, you just need one basic boomerang bounce from Sivir and you can crit an entire team. Now Kobbe looks like he's doing so much work in this fight, assassinating people from the side, but the Urgot is such a massive problem.
And that fear and 1,000 gold shutdown. It was a 2K deficit, a little more than 2K for Sencux. That is instantly deleted. Because now he's going to look a lot more threatening. We'll see if he chose to finish the Rapid Fire or the Infinity Edge on the next back. And gets another one. Another shutdown for Sencux. Immediately, IE completed.
Can we check the gold on Sencux versus LeBlanc again?
Yeah. Instantly tied up. 600 difference now from 2.2K. And those are the kind of mistakes you cannot afford to be making. And for so long, we look back, once again, 2018 spring. Splyce were like, ooh, late game team fighting team. But it wasn't necessarily superior execution. It was just that they built comps that were good at going to the late game very frequently. This time around, they do not have a comp that is really great in the late game, short of LeBlanc finding a miracle flank. And Corki just continues to scale up more and more. Magic damage crits are one of the most brutal things in the game to play against.
I do want to say this, though, before the team fight happens. Although, hold on.
Sencux on the flank. Kobbe takes a lot of damage from the Corki. The package is available, too. Humanoid on the flank. A good package coming in could turn this fight. Sencux moving towards the tower. Rogue split call. Unbreakable used. Orome now looking to fish. Norskeren on the front lines, going to throw this one out. Kikis unstoppable. Buys a bit more time. Both teams retreating. A single death could set up the resets for Norskeren. You have to keep your eyes on that. No one on Rogue can afford to go down.
So the thing is a lot of people will say that the Corki and the Sivir just straight outscale this composition. And while I think that there is some merit to that, Ezreal does so much damage, and if Kobbe is able to land these skill shots, he's still going to shred through this team. It's just harder to do.
One man on the front lines finds Humanoid once again. Gets the ulti on the LeBlanc. This champion should never get caught, but yet again, Finn finds a way. He will give his life, though, in the exchange. Xerxe now going to go down too. Rogue are definitely winning the fight. Kobbe needs to slowly play this one out. Retreat and poke. Fishing, though, on the AD carry. A lot of burst comes in from the Ezreal, trying to cut down Kikis. Orome zoning out Sencux on the backside, but HeaQ, he's the crit AD carry. He wants to get another one. Norskeren finds the kill. He's turning this one back. It is HeaQ versus the world. He needs to kill Kobbe, but no. Norskeren coming in, waiting for that spell shield. Ace coming out for Splyce. A messy fight, but they reign supreme in the end.
And finally, it's the execution that Splyce needed on the team fight. Now they can grab the Baron, and it has been 4 attempts at this Purple Worm. Virtually throwing the game entirely back in Rogue's favor, but Splyce finally make the clutch break at 35 minutes exactly.
They will take it down. Let's just, yeah, thank you. This is what we need to see. We need to see what happened here. Finn once again manages to find this play. So good from his Urgot, but what happens after that?
For me, I also want to point out the control ward. That ward in the brush from the mid lane actually causes a lot of problems because, yes, Finn goes down and he finds the LeBlanc, but it's actually really hard for Splyce how they want to play out the rest of the fight because they're competing with denial of vision. And HeaQ actually uses this brush to cause a lot of problems for Kobbe, and that's what makes it so close before Kobbe and the brand new top laner on Aatrox really carry this one through.
Oof.
Good job,
Orome. I mean, Orome's showing up, though. You got to respect this guy. First game on stage, we see so many players, you know, struggle under the pressure, but he has looked incredible. 5-2-6 his scoreline. Finn, though, now running forward. Kobbe needs to be careful, trying desperately to find the Ezreal. Gonna find the knock to disengage. Rogue has to be careful here. Splyce definitely have the advantage in the fight at this stage as it continues to extend. Norskeren now wants to fish for more. Has used the ulti, though, and immediately turned on. Cannot underestimate that. Mistake on the ult now costs him. Orome is going to use the initial revive.
Humanoid's fishing. Just take the tower, boys.
HeaQ level 16, though, is in a strong spot if they continue the fight, but Splyce is just going to siege this one up. Ezreal does so much damage to these towers.
They need to take as much as possible here because, again, this is getting very scary with the execution.
Very much so. I think a messy game from Splyce. No doubt they are just trying to force their gold lead into the face of Rogue at this stage in the game. You mentioned Ezreal, incredibly strong, double tier scaling, as always. Just the burst from his 3 skills together onto a single champion is incredible.
I mean, his ability to 100-0 virtually everyone, save for the Urgot, is astronomical. And so the only myth that I wanted to expel is the idea that, yes, it's Corki and Sivir, but because it is an Ezreal over there, as well as a LeBlanc, the poke damage, I don't think that Splyce just get automatically hard outscale.
No, absolutely not. But a lot of that does come down to where Finn and VandeR can play the fight, if they can be that front line to mitigate a lot of Ezreal's impact. And we saw in the last fight that while Finn did find that solo kill onto Humanoid, that VandeR stepped forward to help him. And when VandeR leaves the back line behind, they're very exploitable by the picks, like the Ezreal, by, of course, the Pyke as well. And, well, Xerxe kind of just left him to death, but still worked out.
It feels like Rogue just need to be this this death ball boulder type of composition, like cover their flanks, move together, fight front to back, whereas Splyce truly are the serpent in this case. They're just trying to figure out where they want to attack, how they find an exposed flank, and just rip Rogue open from the inside out.
All right, quick shout out to Old Man Quickshot. Big fan of Star Wars, but this is Battle for Hoth. You remember Big walkers, 4 legs. Oh, Splyce are definitely just trying to tie the whipcord around over and over and get them to trip, and they may have just tripped HeaQ. Whoa!
Good night.
Gets him with the Ezreal. Of course, they all not connecting, so Norskeren will not get the reset, but that is huge. Taking out HeaQ now means Splyce are in control. They really want to end the game in this death timer window. Massive pick to keep this game forward. One inhibitor down, 2 inhibitors down. Looks like they should be able to get all 3 and end the game. Wow, a single pick deciding this game. Finn could try to turn it here, but don't know if he has quite enough. All eyes on Sencux now, the last remaining massive damage source. Finn, no aggressive combat sums. The TP available, has to be careful here. Splyce slowly chipping away at their opponents. All 3 inhibitors down. The Baron buff backing them up. They won't have the supers, but they have a ton of cannon minions. 1 tower stands left in their way. Slowly they're plucking away. Orome now leaping forward, trying to zone Sencux away from their base. Kobbe can now focus the towers unobstructed. Splyce are going to take the game in the end. It is a messy one, but finally they find a way into the base and they find the win.
And it was frankly the early gold leads that Splyce built for themselves that was able to kind of catapult them over some of those messy Baron setups. What they had 3, 4 attempts, runs at the Baron. They gave away a lot of their gold lead that they had built up, but in the end, they found the execution on the team fight, they transitioned it into the Baron, and then they closed the game. But a little bit closer than it needed to be.
Absolutely, and I think well played by Rogue to utilize their team comp as well as they did in some of those fights. Got to give a shout out to Finn, but at the end of the day, Orome showing up this last-minute substitution doesn't seem like it affected Splyce too much. He was still such a strong individual contributor, and for Splyce, everyone really matters right now as they try to race into these playoff spots, as they try to secure this higher seeding, and they try to make sure that teams like Rogue can make these last-minute dashes to catch up in the standings.
And I don't want to call it experimentation, but I will say that, you know, kudos to Splyce for going for a composition like that can be a little bit tougher to execute because your team fighting can be so chaotic if you're not used to executing on it, but it worked a couple of times.
I think you get an A for effort and you get a W for win, but for execution, I'm not sure if I want to give it a. There were still some mistakes. There were so many great moments from Splyce. Do not get me wrong. And the great moments
the early game was solid.
Outweighed the bad ones too, because it gave them that lead. It let them come back in a lot of these exchanges. And when it came down to it, Kobbe in those final moments, killing HeaQ, was like the defining moment in the game. But that said, look at the gold. That does not tell you how close so many of these exchanges were. This looks like, oh, Splyce dominated from start to finish, but you watched that game with me, dear audience. You saw how close Rogue were to coming back in a few instances.
Just a couple of close calls. Do want to give huge credit to Kobbe, though, on the Ezreal. It was a hard composition to play into, especially when you have an Urgot kind of in your face, but he made sure that he was always finding these correct windows to attack the flanks. He was dishing out all of the damage necessary on Ezreal, hitting the skill shots when he needed to, and it was one of the stronger Ezreal performances that we've seen.
Absolutely. I think finding those opportunities and not being afraid to throw that ultimate down in a team fight. Of course, on the opposite side, Finn finding Humanoid was part of the reason why this game went on so long. So shout out to him on the side of Rogue. Answered a lot of our questions, I think, about individual ability, and Orome as well. But if you want to vote for your key player of the game, you need to head over to @LE Sports on Twitter. We've narrowed it down to a few different options. It's Xerxe, it's Kobbe, it's Norskeren. You're going Kobbe. I know you. You're an 80K player.
Everyone had kind of their moment to shine. I just feel like Kobbe was something like, what, 11, 1, and 8 on the game, so I think you just have to give it to him.
I mean, looks super fantastic, but Xerxe also found all those kills to shut down Sencux early game. It's a tough debate, folks. We'll let you decide. We'll stay out of it for this one. But for more on Splyce's win, let's head over to Quickshot and their top laner.
Thank you very much, and I'm joined by Orome. Congratulations on the win, and welcome to the LEC stage. Let's talk about the game really quickly. It felt like it was much closer than it needed to be with the gigantic gold lead you guys had, especially closing the game out. It felt like you took a lot of attempts at Baron and weren't able to secure it. So how did it feel, and what was the team communication like?
I think we played a comp that's not so easy to finish the games with. We've only had like 2 games of practice because Chachi called in sick. So playing a hard comp, that's why we had a hard time finishing the game.
And let's talk a little bit personally, of course, Chachi being unable to play and you coming in to step in from Splyce Vipers. How did it feel, playing your first game on the LEC stage?
I mean, when Peter messaged me in the morning and he's like, hey, tomorrow we were gonna play LEC, it felt kind of good and kind of bad because I didn't want to get into LEC because Chachi was sick. I wanted to get in because I deserve it, but it also felt good because obviously it's nice playing on the main stage.
And of course, 100% win rate on the LEC stage. Congratulations. How important, is it to you as, one of the members on the ERL team that Splyce is now 7 wins, 5 losses. They're tied for first place. So in this very tight race for playoffs, you've had a helping hand in keep Splyce one step ahead of the competition.
I think I didn't give much of a helping hand. I think they had this game even without me. They could put like a bot on top lane and still win this game, so.
Orome, you are the perfect teammate. Congratulations on the win. I have one last question for you before we head off. Next game is Vitality versus Fnatic. Who will win this game and why?
I think both teams are pretty, how do you call it?
Inconsistent?
Inconsistent.
I got you.
It's a very hard game to predict the result of, but I think Vitality will have it.
Okay, and who will be the reason that helps Vitality win the game? Which player?
I think they will, I think jungle will make the difference in this game.
All right, we'll see. Kikis versus Broxah. Orome, congratulations on the win. We're heading to an ad break, and when we come back, it's Vitality taking on Fnatic. Dude, nailed that.
Going in. Sencux, why would you go that way? That is definitely not the way you want it to go. But the fact that you don't really get to decide how things happen because Xerxe is deciding it for you. Finn, caught out. Sencux, no package available. Maybe wants to get something done here, but just walks up and now wants to keep it going. Does trade the 1-for-1. Humanoid now trying to finish off Sencux. Pyke ulti comes in on the hunt bird, but HeaQ's all alone on the front line. Has used the spell shield, now starting to throw out a few attacks. Orome, they'll get in the reset. Splyce now Kobbe going godlike, pulling back. Finn coming in, trying to look for the reset. We'll get the fear in the middle of the team. Splyce are definitely just trying to tie the whipcord around over and over and get them to trip. And they may have just tripped HeaQ. Whoa! Good night! Splyce are going to take the game in the end. It is a messy one, but finally they find a way into the base and they find the win.
We are powered up.
Get the Baron Buff Power Play with Shell V-Power.